Rain hammered the alley like 1,000 thrown nails when Ethan Carter turned the corner with his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, and their German shepherd, Rex. The patrol car lay on its side, strobing blue against brick. A woman in a torn uniform crawled from the shattered windshield, gloved hand slipping on wet glass, blood ribboning down her sleeve. Rex froze, ears up. Lily squeezed Ethan's fingers. A neat, lethal hole spider webbed the windshield. This hadn't been a crash. This was an execution, interrupted. "Daddy," Lily whispered. "She's dying." The choice arrived like a lightning strike. Walk away or step into a storm that wouldn't forget their names. The first thing Ethan did was put Lily behind him and snap a command to Rex. The shepherd slunk forward, low and alert, rain beating on black and tan fur. "Ma'am," Ethan said, dropping to his knees beside the officer. "Stay with me." Her eyes were shock-bright and fierce. "Amanda. Blake." She breathed. "Don't. Call it in. Don't trust dispatch." Ethan's hands moved like old habits, fingers at the carotid, gauging the pulse thready. He tore open his backpack and pulled a trauma bandage he never stopped carrying, because life had taught him that quiet neighborhoods could turn loud in a second. He set the bandage, pressed, taped with a strip of duct tape. Rain slid over his forearms, washed pink. Headlights turned into the far end of the alley. Rex growled. Ethan lifted his gaze and saw a black sedan stop without turning off its lights. The driver's door cracked open. A man stepped out, umbrella up, face in shadow. Another man did the same, both hands in his coat pockets. "There," the first said. "She's not finished." Ethan scooped Amanda up, a fireman's cradle, and hissed to Lily. "Stay behind me." Rex, with Lily. He moved to the mouth of a narrower service passage brick on one side. Chain link on the other. The men in coats began to walk faster. "Stop." One barked. Rex exploded into barking, a fury that filled the alley. It was enough. The men hesitated, hands stuttering toward concealed holsters. Ethan took the service passage at a jog, boots splashing through black puddles, Lily's sneakers slapping pavement, Rex glued to her side like a shadow. He didn't run home. He ran to where most people wouldn't. The old municipal parking structure across from the boarded-up textile mill Concrete and Echo, blind corners and choices. They made it to the stairwell. Ethan set Amanda on the landing, knelt, and looked into her face, rain dripping from his brow. "Do you understand me?" Amanda blinked water. "If I die, take the locker key. Unit C12. Truck garage. On Morton. USB inside. Damian Cross. Deputy Chief Whitaker. They..." She swallowed hard. Grimaced. "They own the night." Ethan stared at the small brass key on a chain around her neck. Cross was a name every city heard in whispers: a developer, philanthropist, accused and never convicted. Deputy Chief Harold Whitaker was something else entirely. A legend, the department's smiling spine. "You're not dying tonight," Ethan said. He broke the chain, pocketed the key, and cinched the bandage once more. He turned to Lily. "Sweetheart, can you do something brave?" Her chin wobbled. "Like, movie brave or for real brave?" "For real. We're going to the truck. You're going to hold the flashlight and keep it out of her eyes. When I say..." She nodded. Rex pressed his flank to her knee, as if to say he'd make sure. They cut through the structure to Ethan's beat-up Ford, got Amanda stretched across the back seat, Lily beside her, Rex at their feet nearly silent except for an occasional soft whine. Ethan drove the way trained men do when they know they're being hunted. 2 lefts, 3 rights. No patterns. Eyes cutting constantly between mirrors and windows. At home, he parked in the detached garage and killed the engine without turning off the headlights. He listened. The neighborhood breathed. No engines idling in the dark. No strangers smoking under eaves. Inside, he laid Amanda on the couch, moved fast. He boiled water. He made Lily a cocoa because children remember safety by taste as much as by touch. He cleaned around the wound with saline, checked for exit, found none. He replaced the bandage with steri strips and gauze. He said a line with the supplies he'd kept since a life he didn't talk about. Lily watched with solemn eyes. "Daddy, is she a good guy?" "She's a good guy," he said. "And some bad guys are going to be mad we found her first." Amanda woke just before dawn, pain carving a line between her brows. She reached instinctively for her holster, and only then remembered it was gone. She saw Lily on the floor coloring with a broken crayon. She saw Rex watching her with a tilted head, dark eyes liquid. "Where am I?" she rasped. "Safe for the moment," Ethan said from the kitchen doorway. He handed her a glass of water and 3 pills. Acetaminophen, antibiotics. "You'll need stitches later. Right now, you need to tell me who wants you dead." She drank. The water ran through her like apology. "I've been undercover 12 months, she said. "Cross is moving guns through a shell corporation, using city contracts marked as construction equipment. Whitaker's his umbrella inside the department. I had proof on a thumb drive. They hit me on Adams while I was transmitting to an off-site box. The box is in that garage. Unit C-12. Ethan's jaw flexed. Under the softness of a mechanic's schedule, he still wore a soldier's bone and reflexes. He thought about calling 911, what you're supposed to do when bleeding people show up on your couch. Then he thought about a deputy chief who could turn a call into a funeral. "Eat what you can," he said. "You've got an hour to rest. Then we go get your USB. "We?" Amanda tried to smirk. It came out as a wince. "You've got a kid. I also have a conscience. A dog who bites on command. And a truck with new tires." Ethan said. "We're not waiting for morning news to tell us what they think we did." Lily looked up from her drawing. 3 stick figures and a big brown and black dog. "Can Rex have a vest like in the videos, Daddy?" "Working on it," he said. They left at first light, before the city shook off its dreams. Lily went to Mrs. Dalrymple next door, with a half-truth about a parts run. Mrs. Dalrymple was 90% suspicion and 10% kindness. She took the child's hand with the latter and watched Ethan with the former, as if she could sniff out secrets. Ethan loaded Rex into the truck bed under the tonneau where he liked the dark, and Amanda into the front seat where she hated the silence. The Morton garage sat behind a chain-link fence with a rusted lock that had been cut so many times the chain links looked chewed. Inside, the air smelled of oil and cold. Amanda led them past rows of city pickups to the third aisle, stopped at C-12, and froze. The roll-up door was open an inch. A strip of palm-sized gray tape held the latch. "Tripwire?" Ethan murmured. "Or a lazy search," Amanda said. Either way, they were here. Ethan rolled the door up with his shoulder against the metal and his other hand on the knife hidden under his jacket cuff. The unit was the kind of messy that hid order. Tarp over 2 crates labeled gaskets. A metal locker, dented where something heavy had missed the handle. "Rex," Ethan said softly. "Search." The dog flowed forward, nose low. He paused at the tarp, looked back, then inched his nose under. He sneezed, jerked back, and whined. Ethan lifted the tarp and found the smell that made dogs complain and men swear, not rot ammonia. Someone had doused the space to kill scent. He looked at the locker. "You said a thumb drive?" Amanda nodded. She jammed the key into the lock. It turned. Inside, a bright yellow first aid kit sat on the top shelf. A place no one checks because it's too obvious. Under it, taped to the underside, small and ordinary black plastic with a silver stripe, sat a thumb drive. "Got you," Amanda whispered. A shadow moved across the roll-up slit like a cloud-catching sun. "Visitors," Ethan said, already moving. The first man through made the mistake of assuming surprise equals victory. Rex hit him mid-thigh, 100 pounds of purpose dragging him off his feet. Ethan closed with the second, a narrow man with a blonde ponytail and a gas station tattoo on his neck. The narrow man got a hand on a gun. Ethan got 2 on his wrist and a knee into his thigh, and Bones argued about whose job it was to break. Amanda fired once with her offhand low and precise. The round punched clean through the concrete between the third man's boots, and the third man decided he wanted breakfast more than glory and ran. Sirens began to wind up somewhere distant. "Who called that in?" Amanda asked, breathing hard. "Maybe the neighbors," Ethan said. "Or Whitaker," she said. They took the drive and left the men groaning, two of them newly religious. On the way out, Amanda dialed a number and said, "Agent Noah Briggs, please." She waited, listening, then put the phone on speaker. "Noah, it's Blake. You told me if I ever said the word umbrella to you, you'd bring a flood." A measured male voice. "Say it." "Umbrella," Amanda said. "I've got to drive. If I die, it goes to the press." "Where are you?" "In motion. Whitaker is dirty. I'm not calling this in. If you're clean, meet me where the city forgets its debts." She hung up. The waterfront. Ethan drove to the docks under a sky the color of old pewter. Lily's absence in the truck felt like a missing limb. He pictured Mrs. Dalrymple's backbone of iron and forced himself to breathe. "Cross will make a delivery," Amanda said. "Construction equipment coming off a trawler named Daphne Asterisk. Inside rifle kits and ghost gun lowers. If we can get 5 minutes of footage and a serial number off a crate, we can tie him to the shipments." "And Whitaker? He'll show up to help," she said bitterly. "And to ensure no one gets arrested. At Pier 17, the Daphne bobbed at a private slip. The kind you get when you sponsor police charitable galas and dedicate playgrounds. Men in orange vests moved with the bored competence of hourlies. Men in dark jackets moved with the alertness of people who don't clock out. Ethan backed the truck into a shadow under a dead crane, killed the engine, and stroked Rex's ruff. "We're going to work now, buddy," he murmured. He strapped a small body cam to the dog's harness, checked the feed on his phone, and smiled when the world lurched into low, adventurous angles. Amanda watched him with something that wasn't quite surprise and wasn't quite admiration. It was what you felt when you realized fate had sent you the right stranger. They split. Amanda covered from a stack of shipping pallets. Ethan moved along the skeletons of old pilings, keeping to the rust and shadow. Rex slunk toward the nearest ramp like he'd been born from the dark water. A forklift carried a crate stenciled, "Generator Housing Sterling Infrastructure Parts," off the boat. The foreman signed a clipboard, cussed at the weather, and told no one in particular to hurry. A man in a silver-gray suit stepped from a black SUV as if the dock were a red carpet. He had slicked back blonde hair, a long pale face, and eyes the color of frozen metal. Damien Cross. He smiled like a man about to cut a ribbon. "Let's move. Whitaker will be thrilled," said a warm baritone behind him. Deputy Chief Harold Whitaker appeared in his dress coat and a windbreaker with the city crest, like a father checking on a housewarming. He clapped Cross on the shoulder. "Get this out of the weather. If you make my guys haul anything upstairs, I'll charge you for cardio." Ethan lifted his phone, watching Rex's point of view. The dog's camera caught a crate's corner as a worker's crowbar pried it up, just enough to flash the truth. Oiled paper, a receiver blank, a box of buffer assemblies under a fake top. The camera caught Cross's hand on the crate, his signet ring glinting. It caught Whitaker's watch face. It caught the clipboard with a serial. Amanda whispered into the cuff mic Ethan had clipped there. "We have it. What we don't have is an exit." He whispered back. Whitaker's radio crackled. "Unit 7. En route." He lifted his radio to reply, then paused, head cocked. He turned slowly, scanning the dark. His eyes passed over the pallets where Amanda crouched, then over the crane's shadow where Ethan lay. He smiled to himself, a small, satisfied curl. He pressed the transmit button. "Route them to Pier 17B. And whoever's listening who isn't mine, congratulations. You almost made it." He knew. Whitaker drew his sidearm and called out. "Conversational. Officer Blake. You're under arrest for theft of department property, assault, obstruction, and a real lack of gratitude. Come out. Let's not embarrass anyone." Amanda looked at Ethan through the lattice of pallets. Her breath shivered. He shook his head. Somewhere south, sirens opened like a bad dream. Somewhere north. A gull cackled. Ethan whispered, "Plan B." "Which is?" Amanda asked. He smiled without humor. chaos. He send-tapped the dog's camera feed to 3 destinations: a secure folder on his cloud drive, Agent Briggs's number, and because he'd lived long enough to know institutions break an email list, he used to share Lily's soccer pictures with every parent in 2 zip codes. He then tapped a second app, a push-to-talk emergency channel that patched to every squad car's MDT in Range District 3, the ugly stepchild of used radios no one bothered to secure. He held the phone against Rex's harness and pressed "Go Live." Amanda stood, dropped her gun, and lifted both hands. "Good girl," Whitaker crooned, stepping forward. "Let's—" Amanda's voice came out of a dozen squad car radios nearby, and half a dozen on the street beyond, and 3 in the station break room where day shift ate bagels. It came with video. Because technology has very little respect for corrupted hierarchies. "This is Officer Amanda Blake, badge 4312, she said, and the viewers cops. Bored civilians who'd once put their numbers on a practice sign-up sheet watched on their screens as a dog's eye camera showed a crate lifted and a false top peeled, and watched when the tape cut to Ethan's phone camera. Cross's signet ring on contraband. Whitaker's watch above a log. Deputy Chief Whitaker is working with Damian Cross, Amanda said, voice steady. "If I die, this video is already everywhere." Whitaker didn't shoot. A man like that never fires first in public. He moved toward Amanda with a paternal sigh, palm up, the way you do with skittish rookies and feral cats. "Amanda, my God, you're injured," he said, and misjudged how much the city had changed while he wasn't looking. The first set of sirens stopped too soon. Not at Pier 17B, as he'd ordered. At 17A, officers in rain jackets spilled onto the dock, radios squawking with his voice and Amanda's, a dissonant chord that told a new story. "Deputy Chief?" one called warily, pistol aimed at the planks. "Sir, what are we doing?" Something broke then, not a bone. Not yet, but the spell that makes men think their bosses are gods. The officers watched Whitaker like he might grow horns. Cross watched Whitaker like a man suddenly noticing the ocean is large. Cross hissed, "Fix this," and took a step back toward the SUV. He never made the door. Rex materialized from under the forklift and planted himself between Cross and the car. A growl rolling out of his chest like a landslide. Cross froze. Ethan slid out of the shadow and took Cross's wrist, gentle as a nurse and absolute as a cuff. Whitaker drew breath to shout, and found himself looking down the barrel of Amanda's recovered gun. "Don't," she said. Agent Noah Briggs arrived then, not with a cavalry, but with 3 agents in windbreakers, and an expression like a dentist who's found the nerve. "Deputy Chief," he said, producing a warrant. "Step away from Mr. Cross. Officers, kindly remove his firearm." No one moved. Then the youngest officer, the one with acne along his jawline, the one who still said "sir" like prayer, lifted his chin and did what his academy instructors promised him was the job. He took Whitaker's weapon. Hand steady. Eyes bright with terror and something like relief. After that, everything moved quickly and heavily, like a dream in boots. Cross was cuffed, protested donation histories, threatened lawyers. Whitaker was cuffed, offered explanations, demanded phones. The crates were opened. Numbers were photographed. The Daphne, quote, captain claimed ignorance in 3 languages. The rain eased into a gray drizzle, as if the weather had been conspiring and had spent itself. Briggs stepped to Amanda, took in her pallor, the dark flag of blood on her shirt. "You need a hospital," he said. "I need a minute," she said, and turned to Ethan. He suddenly felt the ache in his shoulders, the tremor in his hands, the hollow in his chest shaped like a small girl with pigtails who was not currently in his truck. He looked at Rex, who looked back solemnly and sat, tail thumping once. He looked at Amanda, who looked up at him with a gratitude that made his throat work. "Thank you," she said simply. "It was the right thing," he said, "because anything larger would have broken something inside." "You did more than the right thing," she said softly. "You trusted a stranger and took on a city. You trusted me," asterisk he heard underneath, and something in his chest resettled. By afternoon, the city had new music. Dispatchers spoke slowly like people relearning how to pronounce an honest alphabet. Officers stood in hallways and said nothing, then said too much, then laughed like people who just avoided a cliff. Cross's attorneys went hunting for television cameras and found only microphones. Whitaker's portrait on the third-floor wall suddenly looked less like a saint and more like a man who had never learned to bow. The press conference that evening perched on the steps of the Hall of Justice. The police commissioner spoke carefully, a woman of metronome dignity, and said investigations would proceed with integrity. She introduced Agent Briggs, who said words like evidence chain and interagency cooperation. She introduced Officer Amanda Blake, who walked to the podium in a clean uniform jacket over a sling, hair neat, eyes direct. The crowd saw a woman who had nearly bled out alone in the rain and had raised her voice anyway. And finally, the commissioner said, "We would like to recognize a private citizen and his K-9 companion for extraordinary bravery." Ethan would have fled if Lily's hand hadn't been hooked through his elbow like a small anchor. Rex wore a borrowed tactical vest with the word guest velcroed on, as if the city weren't sure what else to call an angel with teeth. The applause was a rolling sound that made Ethan want to find a gap in the crowd and sleep for a year. A reporter shouted, "Mr. Carter, are you going to join the K-9 unit?" Ethan smiled. "A lopsided thing. I've got a unit," he said. And Rex wagged as if he understood English and nuance. Another called, "Officer Blake, what do you want to say to the department tonight?" Amanda looked out over a sea of uniforms and faces and lives. "Don't let this make you smaller," she said. "Let it make you better." The crowd went quiet like a cathedral. Later, under a softer rain that felt less like a threat and more like a blessing, Ethan walked Lily and Rex to the truck. Amanda caught up with them, the sling making her clumsy, the smile making her human. "Lily," she said, "do you think I might borrow your dad for a coffee sometimes? He's not great at paperwork, and I could use help filing the memory of tonight somewhere it won't spill." Lily considered, all gravity. "Only if you bring those little marshmallows," she said. "I can do that," Amanda said, a laugh on the edges of her voice. They stood there for a beat, the single dad with the capable hands, the officer who refused to be owned by the night, the child who believed bravery was something you practiced, and the dog who had changed a city's story with a camera and a growl. The city hummed around them, still itself, a little cleaner at the edges. Ethan opened the truck door for Lily, then looked at Amanda. "You're not alone," he said. "Neither are you," she said. Rex jumped into the back seat. Lily climbed in after him, burying her fingers in his ruff. Amanda reached to close the truck door and hesitated. Looking up, rain jeweled on her lashes. "You know," she said, "the part that shocked them the most wasn't the video." "What was it?" Ethan asked. "That a stranger saw a cop in the dark and decided to drag her toward the light," she said. "That a dog wore courage like it was a second skin. That a little girl stood very still while the night shouted. We have policies for everything. We don't have a policy for that." Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. He put the truck in gear and pulled away from the courthouse steps. The wipers clicking, the roadway shining, the future not exactly safe, but more honest. Behind them, in a building with suddenly less swagger, a maintenance crew took down a framed portrait from the third-floor hall. In a small house on a quiet street, Mrs. Dalrymple pulled cookies from an oven and told the empty air she had always known that dog was special. On the river, the Daphne slip rocked gently, empty, as if a secret had become weightless. In the truck, Lily fell asleep with her cheek on Rex's side. Amanda drowsed against the window, the sling cradling her arm like a promise. Ethan drove toward the kind of ordinary evening he'd thought he wanted forever, now threaded with something unexpected hope that didn't feel like a luxury anymore, but a duty. The city kept raining, softer and softer, rinsing a little truth into all its cracks.